A Deathworld Cadet. Walked alone, and every apex beast stepped aside. Marcus Chen stepped off the transport shuttle onto the crystalline surface of Zephyr Station, his worn military boots making sharp clicks against the alien metal. The other cadets from across the galaxy clustered together in nervous groups, their various species instinctively seeking comfort in numbers. But Marcus walked alone, just as he always had. The Galactic Military Academy's orientation hall buzzed with excited chatter in dozens of languages. Tall, graceful Altarians with their silvery skin whispered among themselves. Stocky Cronin warriors compared battle scars with pride. The insectoid Vex clicked their mandibles in rapid conversation. And there, near the corner, stood Marcus, the only human in a sea of alien faces. Commander Thesic, a reptilian saurian with scales that shifted from green to blue depending on his mood, called for attention. His massive form commanded respect as he addressed the gathering. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Thesic's voice boomed through the translator devices. "You represent the finest young warriors from across known space. Here, you will be tested beyond your limits. Many of you will fail. Some of you will break. But those who succeed will become the guardians of galactic peace." Marcus listened quietly, his dark eyes scanning the room. He noticed how the other species naturally formed hierarchies. The Cronin stood tallest, their warrior culture demanding visible dominance. The Altarians grouped by intellectual achievements, their minds already calculating social advantages. The Vex formed perfect geometric patterns, their hive mind instincts impossible to suppress. But Marcus simply stood alone, comfortable in his solitude. "Your first trial begins now," Commander Thesic announced, his scales shifting to a warning orange. "The Crucible of Vex Prime. You will be transported to our training world, where you must survive for 7 days. No technology beyond basic survival gear, no weapons, no outside assistance." Nervous energy rippled through the crowd. Vex Prime was legendary, a world where the Academy tested the physical and mental limits of every cadet. Many species required months of preparation just to breathe its atmosphere safely. As the cadets were herded toward transport pods, Marcus overheard conversations that made his jaw tighten with quiet determination. "The human won't last a day," snickered a Cronin named Gorvek, his tusks gleaming. "Their species is too weak. No natural armor, no claws, no enhanced senses. They're barely above the prey level." A delicate Altarian named Lyrix nodded in agreement, her silver eyes cold with calculation. "My research indicates humans are an anomaly in galactic civilization. They somehow achieved spaceflight, despite being one of the most physically inferior species, probably luck or assistance from superior races." The Vex representative, designated as Unit 47, clicked mechanically. "Human physiology insufficient for survival protocols. Estimated time before failure, 4.7 hours after planetfall." Marcus said nothing. He simply adjusted his standard-issue survival pack and followed the others toward the transport pods. But inside, something ancient and primal stirred. The same instinct that had driven his ancestors to chase down mammoths across Ice Age plains, to cross uncharted oceans in wooden ships, to walk on alien moons despite every rational fear. The transport ride to Vex Prime took 6 hours. During the journey, alliances formed naturally. The Cronin gathered in warrior circles, sharing battle chants. The Altarians engaged in complex intellectual debates. The Vex synchronized their thinking patterns for maximum efficiency. Other species found their own groups based on similar biologies or cultural backgrounds. Marcus spent the time differently. He studied the mission briefings in silence, memorizing topographical data, weather patterns, and ecological information about Vex Prime. But more importantly, he meditated on something his grandfather had taught him during survival training in the Amazon rainforest back on Earth. "Boy," the old man had said, "every other creature on this planet is better than us at something." Lions are stronger. Eagles see farther. Wolves smell better. Fish swim faster. But we're still here, and most of them aren't, because we have something special. We adapt, we endure, and when everything else runs from the darkness, we walk into it. The transport shuddered as it entered Vex Prime's atmosphere. Through the viewports, Marcus could see a world that defied easy description. Crystalline forests stretched across purple plains under a green-tinted sky. 3 moons hung overhead, their gravitational influence creating strange weather patterns that shifted from desert heat to Arctic cold within hours. "Final briefing," announced Lieutenant Zara, a cybernetic-enhanced officer whose species Marcus didn't recognize. Vex Prime maintains a 1.3 gravity environment. The atmosphere is breathable for most species, but contains trace toxins that will gradually weaken non-adapted physiology. Temperature ranges from -40 to +60 Celsius. Native wildlife includes several apex predators rated Class 7 dangerous or higher. The Cronin warriors grinned at the challenge. The Altarians calculated survival probabilities. The Vex simply processed the data. Marcus checked his gear one final time. Standard survival kit, emergency shelter, water purification tablets, basic medical supplies, and a beacon for emergencies, though using it meant automatic failure. No weapons, no advanced technology, nothing that would give him an artificial advantage. "Drop zones are randomized," Lieutenant Zara continued. "You will be scattered across a 100-square-kilometer area. Extraction occurs at the northern beacon point in exactly 7 days. Good luck." The transport pods launched one by one, each cadet hurtling toward the alien surface below. Marcus watched through his pod's viewport as the others deployed, some in groups that had managed to stay together, others scattered individually across the harsh landscape. His pod struck the ground with jarring force, the impact systems barely managing to keep him conscious. When the dust settled, Marcus found himself in a valley surrounded by towering crystal formations that hummed with strange energy. The air tasted metallic, and the higher gravity made every movement require extra effort. He was completely alone. Most species would have felt terror at that isolation. The Cronin needed their warrior bonds for strength. The Altarians required intellectual companionship for mental stability. The Vex literally couldn't function properly without hive-mind connections. But Marcus smiled grimly as he shouldered his pack and began walking toward higher ground. Solitude wasn't his weakness. It was his greatest strength. As the twin suns began to set on his first day, Marcus established a temporary shelter in a cave system near a fresh water source. The crystal formations provided some protection from the wind, and the elevated position gave him a tactical advantage for observing the surrounding area. He had just finished setting up his basic camp when he heard the first howl. The sound echoed through the crystal canyons like nothing Marcus had ever experienced. Part roar, part electronic screech, entirely alien. It was answered by another howl, then another, until the entire valley resonated with predatory calls. Through his night vision training, Marcus could see them moving in the darkness below. Creatures the size of earth elephants, but built like hunting cats, with crystalline spines that glowed with bioluminescent patterns. Their eyes reflected the moonlight like searchlights as they prowled through the valley. The Academy files had called them Shardstalkers, apex predators that hunted in coordinated packs, and had never been successfully defeated by any single cadet from any species. The recommended survival strategy was simple: hide and pray they didn't find you. But as Marcus watched the pack move through his valley, he noticed something the Academy files hadn't mentioned. The Shardstalkers moved with purpose, but also with hesitation. They paused frequently, testing the air, their body language suggesting uncertainty rather than confidence. It took Marcus several minutes to realize what was happening. The predators could sense him in his cave, but they weren't approaching. Instead, they were maintaining their distance, almost as if they were afraid. Marcus had read about this phenomenon in Earth's ancient history. Before humans developed advanced weapons, before civilization, his ancestors had somehow learned to make apex predators afraid of them. Lions, tigers, bears, creatures that could easily kill a human in direct combat, had learned to avoid human settlements, to fear human presence. The old hunting guides called it the stare of the apex predator killer, something in human body language, human scent, human behavior that triggered an instinctive fear response in other predators. Scientists had never fully understood it, but every experienced outdoorsman knew it was real. Now, on an alien world light years from Earth, Marcus was seeing the same phenomenon. The shard stalkers prowled the valley edges for another hour, but none of them approached his cave. Eventually, they moved on to hunt easier prey, leaving Marcus alone in the crystal wilderness. For the first time since leaving Earth, Marcus allowed himself a genuine smile. His grandfather would have been proud. The night passed without incident, but Marcus knew the real challenges were just beginning. 7 days on Vex Prime would test every survival skill he'd ever learned. The other cadets had advantages: natural armor, enhanced strength, superior senses, or technological implants that pushed the boundaries of what the Academy considered basic gear. All Marcus had was 4 billion years of human evolution, shaped by 10,000 generations of ancestors who had survived everything their deadly homeworld could throw at them. But as he settled in for the night, listening to the alien sounds of the crystal wilderness, Marcus felt confident for the first time since joining the Academy. Every other cadet was trying to prove they were better than their instructors expected. Marcus was about to prove they were all competing for second place. The morning of his second day brought new challenges. The gravity was taking its toll on his energy levels, and the trace toxins in the atmosphere created a persistent headache. But Marcus had faced worse during high-altitude survival training in the Himalayas. He adapted his pace, adjusted his breathing, and pressed forward toward the extraction point. It was mid-morning when he encountered his first fellow cadet. Gorvek the Cronin warrior was trapped on a crystal ledge, surrounded by a pack of smaller predators that looked like metallic wolves. The proud warrior's natural armor was cracked and bleeding, his emergency beacon clutched in one massive hand but not yet activated. Marcus could have walked past. The Cronin had mocked him, predicted his failure, dismissed him as inferior. Military doctrine suggested that in survival situations, resources should be conserved for one's own survival. Instead, Marcus did something that would be discussed in Academy tactical classes for decades to come. He walked directly into the pack of predators, empty hands at his sides, and every single one of them backed away. A Deathworld cadet walked alone, and every apex beast stepped aside. Gorvek stared in absolute bewilderment as the metallic wolf pack scattered before Marcus like startled prey animals. The massive Cronin warrior had spent 2 days fighting for his life, his natural armor cracked, and his warrior's pride pushed to its limits. Now this small human was walking through deadly predators like they were nervous house pets. "How?" Gorvek rumbled, his tusks gleaming with confusion and grudging respect. Marcus extended a hand to help the Cronin down from the ledge. "Your people hunt in groups, right? Warriors supporting each other in battle?" "Yes," Gorvek replied, accepting the assistance despite his pride. "The pack is strength. The individual is weakness." "My species learned something different," Marcus said quietly. "Sometimes the individual has to become something the pack can't handle." As they traveled together toward the extraction point, Marcus noticed how differently the alien wilderness reacted to their combined presence. The predators that had avoided him completely now watched from the shadows, calculating new odds. With 2 potential prey animals together, the hunting instincts of various creatures began to override their mysterious fear of the human. But Marcus had expected this. Human survival strategy had always been adaptable. "We need to split up," he told Gorvek during their first rest stop. Together we're prey. Alone, we're something else. The Cronin's pride bristled. Warriors do not abandon battle brothers. This isn't abandonment, Marcus explained patiently. This is strategy. You take the high route through the crystal ridges. Your natural armor can handle the sharp edges, and your strength lets you climb where the predators can't follow. I'll take the low route through the valleys. We meet at the extraction point. Gorvek considered this, his warrior's mind recognizing sound, tactical thinking. And if you encounter something you cannot handle alone? Marcus's smile held no humor. Then I'll handle it anyway. They parted ways at the next fork in the Crystal Canyons. Gorvek climbed toward the jagged ridgelines, while Marcus descended into the shadow valleys where the most dangerous predators hunted. It was in those valleys that Marcus encountered the Academy's greatest secret. The files had mentioned Class 7 dangerous creatures, but they hadn't mentioned the Void Serpent, a massive predator that the Academy used as their ultimate test. 20 meters of crystalline scales and electromagnetic fury, capable of generating localized energy storms that could scramble electronic equipment and disrupt biological nervous systems. Marcus found its den by accident, following a water source deeper into the valley system. The creature was magnificent and terrifying, a perfect apex predator that had likely never encountered anything it couldn't kill or drive away. It sensed his approach immediately, emerging from its crystal cave with movements that made the ground tremble. Energy crackled along its spine as it reared up to its full height, easily tall enough to swallow a shuttlecraft. Its eyes, each one larger than Marcus's head, fixed on the small human with unmistakable predatory focus. For a moment that stretched into eternity, predator and human stared at each other across the ancient divide between hunter and prey. Then, the Void Serpent did something unprecedented in Academy records. It lowered its massive head in what could only be described as a nod of acknowledgement, then slithered back into its cave. Marcus stood in the Crystal Valley for several minutes, processing what had just occurred. The creature hadn't just avoided him, it had shown respect, recognition, as if it understood on some instinctive level that he represented something it didn't want to challenge. The rest of his journey through the valleys passed without major incident. Word seemed to spread through the alien ecosystem faster than should have been possible. Predators moved away from his path. Scavengers avoided areas he had recently occupied. Even the plant life seemed to react differently to his presence, some of the more aggressive crystal flowers retracting their stinging tendrils as he passed. By day 4, Marcus had developed a routine that would have seemed impossible to any Academy instructor. He traveled during both day and night cycles, sleeping only when exhaustion forced rest. He drank from water sources that other species couldn't approach due to territorial creatures. He walked through territories that were supposed to be impassable death zones. And everywhere he went, the native life stepped aside. It was on day 5 that he encountered Lyrix. The Altarian was in serious trouble. Her species' advanced intellect was useless against the raw biological challenges of Vex Prime, and her delicate constitution was failing under the constant stress. Marcus found her sheltering in a shallow cave, her silver skin pale with exhaustion and early stages of atmospheric poisoning. "The human," she whispered as he approached. "You should not have lasted this long. My calculations were precise." "Your calculations were based on incomplete data," Marcus replied, checking her condition with trained efficiency. She needed medical attention, water and food, resources that would significantly impact his own survival chances. "Why are you helping me?" Lyrix asked as Marcus shared his water purification tablets and emergency rations. "I said you were inferior. I predicted your failure." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer. "My species has a saying, 'No one left behind.' It doesn't matter what you said about me. What matters is that you need help, and I can provide it." "That's not logical," Lyrics protested weakly. "Resources are limited. My survival reduces your chances of success." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But that's not how humans calculate survival." He stayed with her through the worst of her atmospheric sickness, ensuring she was stable before continuing toward the extraction point. But he left her with more than just medical aid. He left her with something that would change Altarian understanding of human psychology forever. A map marking safe water sources, shelter locations, and predator territories. Information that had taken him days to gather through careful observation and near-death experiences. "Why?" she called after him as he prepared to leave. "Because tomorrow, you might be the one who saves someone else," he replied simply. Day 6 brought the greatest challenge yet. A massive storm system swept across Vex Prime, the kind of weather event that the Academy used to test cadets' ability to survive extreme conditions. Crystal lightning crackled through the air with lethal intensity, and the temperature dropped 40 degrees in less than an hour. Marcus took shelter in a cave system that showed signs of recent occupation by other cadets. Scratched messages on the walls told a story of cooperation and survival, Cronin strength symbols, Altarian mathematical equations, Vex geometric patterns. The various species were learning to work together, sharing resources and knowledge. But as the storm raged outside, Marcus realized he was being watched. The Shardstalker pack had returned, but they weren't hunting. They were sheltering from the same storm, and their behavior toward the human was completely unprecedented. Instead of territorial aggression, they showed what could only be described as curiosity mixed with caution. The pack leader, a massive creature with scars that spoke of countless battles, approached slowly. It stopped just outside striking distance and performed a complex series of movements, not threatening displays, but what animal behaviorists would later identify as communication attempts. Marcus responded instinctively, using body language techniques his grandfather had taught him for dealing with large predators. Calm confidence, non-threatening posture, but absolute certainty in his own position in the ecosystem. The Shardstalker tilted its head, processing this response. Then it did something that would reshape galactic understanding of human-animal interaction. It settled down near the cave entrance, positioning itself as a guardian against smaller predators that might be seeking shelter from the storm. For the entire night, Marcus slept protected by a creature that the Academy classified as one of the most dangerous life forms in known space. When morning came and the storm passed, the Shardstalker rose, looked directly at Marcus one final time, and departed with what could only be described as a respectful farewell. Marcus completed the rest of his journey to the extraction point in a state of quiet contemplation. The experience on Vex Prime had taught him something profound about his species' place in the galaxy. Humans weren't physically superior to other races. They were something entirely different. They were the apex social predators, the species that other predators instinctively recognized as dangerous not because of strength or speed, but because of something far more ancient and primal, the ability to form alliances with anything, including their natural enemies. As he crested the final ridge and saw the extraction beacon in the valley below, Marcus could see dozens of other cadets already gathered. Many looked worse for wear. Some were injured. A few were being treated for serious atmospheric poisoning. But they had survived. More importantly, they had learned to work together. Cronin warriors were sharing supplies with delicate Altarians. Vex units were providing technological support to less advanced species. The harsh environment of Vex Prime had forced them to overcome their natural prejudices and recognize their mutual dependence. But as Marcus walked down the slope toward the gathering, something extraordinary happened. Every conversation stopped, every head turned, and for a moment, the entire group of alien cadets stared at the human who had walked alone through their trial and emerged unchanged. Then Gorvek's voice boomed across the valley. "The pack is strength. but the individual who walks alone carries the strength of the entire pack. It was, Marcus realized, the highest compliment a Cronin warrior could give. The extraction shuttle arrived precisely on schedule, and as the cadets loaded aboard, Marcus noticed the changed dynamics. The rigid species hierarchies from orientation had dissolved into something more fluid and cooperative. The trial had taught them all valuable lessons about survival, adaptation, and the importance of unity in the face of overwhelming challenges. But it had taught them something else as well. Sometimes the most dangerous predator in the galaxy was the one that walked alone, not because it couldn't find a pack, but because it didn't need one. As the shuttle lifted off from Vex Prime's surface, Marcus looked back at the crystal wilderness that had tested them all. Somewhere in those valleys, predators were already returning to their normal hunting patterns. The brief disruption of the Academy trial would be forgotten in a few days, but the memories of the week would shape galactic military doctrine for generations to come. The human had walked alone, and every apex beast had stepped aside. Now it was time to learn what that really meant. A Deathworld cadet walked alone, and every apex beast stepped aside. The Academy's highest council chamber had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Representatives from dozens of species sat around the crystalline conference table, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, growls, harmonics, and translated speech. But every eye, sensor, and optical organ was focused on the data streaming across the central holographic display. Admiral Kethek, the ancient Saurian who commanded the Academy, gestured with one clawed hand toward the recordings from Vex Prime. 7 cycles of trials, 43,000 cadets from 112 species. Never has any individual cadet achieved what we witnessed during Trial Cycle 847. The hologram showed Marcus walking calmly through a pack of shard stalkers, the deadly predators parting before him like a metallic sea. Another sequence displayed the Void Serpent's unprecedented behavior, the ultimate apex predator acknowledging a cadet's presence with what could only be interpreted as respect. The biological impossibility of these interactions cannot be overstated, announced Professor Zelix, the Academy's chief xenobiologist. Her mantis-like form clicked with agitation as she analyzed the data. Vex Prime's ecosystem is carefully balanced. Each predator species occupies a specific niche. The behavior patterns are predictable, documented across millennia. What this human accomplished violates every established principle of interspecies dynamics. Commander Thesic's scales shifted through several color patterns before settling on deep purple, confusion mixed with concern. Our preliminary investigation suggests that human Chen employed no technology beyond standard survival gear. No pheromone manipulators, no neural disruptors, no behavioral modification devices. Yet somehow he achieved absolute dominance over an ecosystem that has challenged our greatest warriors for generations. The Cronin representative, General Thurvok, slammed one massive fist on the table. The impact would have shattered furniture made by most species, but Academy construction was built to handle Cronin emotional expressions. Dominance through strength, we understand. Dominance through intellect, the Altarians have shown us. Dominance through technology, many species achieve. But this is something else entirely. Perhaps we should ask the human directly, suggested Ambassador Lyrics. The delicate Altarian had requested assignment to the Academy Investigation Committee immediately after her rescue from Vex Prime. My personal experience suggests that human Chen's capabilities operate on principles we have not yet recognized or catalogued. Admiral Kethek nodded slowly. Cadet Chen has been recalled from advanced survival training. He should arrive within the hour. As if summoned by those words, the chamber doors opened to admit Marcus. He wore his standard Academy uniform, carried himself with the same quiet confidence they had observed on Vex Prime, and showed no signs of intimidation despite facing the highest-ranking officers in Galactic Military Command. "Cadet Chen reporting as ordered, sir," Marcus said simply, offering a crisp salute. "At ease, Cadet," Admiral Kathek replied. "We have some questions regarding your performance during Trial Cycle 847. Marcus nodded, settling into a stance that every military observer in the room recognized as perfectly balanced, ready for anything, committed to nothing, calmly alert. "Yes, sir. I expected this conversation." Professor Zelix leaned forward, her compound eyes reflecting database searches running in real time. "Cadet Chen, our analysis indicates that you achieved unprecedented cooperation from hostile alien life forms. Can you explain the methodology you employed?" "I didn't employ any methodology, Professor," Marcus replied honestly. "I just behaved naturally." The silence that followed was profound. Species that communicated through electromagnetic pulses, chemical emissions, and harmonic resonance all found themselves equally puzzled by this simple statement. "Naturally," General Thurvok rumbled. "You walked alone through territory that requires entire warrior packs to traverse safely. You approached apex predators that our finest fighters avoid. You moved through the ecosystem as if you belonged there. This is natural for humans?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Maybe not for all humans, sir, but for humans who grew up learning from their planet's natural environment, yes. Earth is what the galaxy classifies as a Class 12 death world. Every ecosystem is packed with creatures that can kill us easily. But we're still there, and most of them aren't, because we learned something different than what other species learned." "And what is that?" Ambassador Lyrix asked, her silver eyes bright with curiosity. "We learned how to make other predators afraid of us without being stronger than them," Marcus explained. "Not through technology or weapons, but through something much older. Something that happened before we even developed language." Admiral Kathek's scales shifted to deep blue, fascination mixed with caution. "Continue, Cadet." "Every species in this room evolved to be good at one thing," Marcus said, his voice calm and confident. "Cronin evolved to be the ultimate warriors, strong, armored, fearless in battle. Altarians evolved to be brilliant intellects, fast thinking, perfect memory, incredible pattern recognition. Vex evolved for perfect coordination and efficiency. Saurians became master strategists and commanders." He paused, looking around the room at representatives of some of the galaxy's most successful species. "Humans evolved to be the ultimate persistence predators. Not the strongest, not the smartest, not the fastest, but the ones who never stop coming. The ones who adapt to anything, survive everything, and keep moving forward no matter what." "But this still does not explain the predator behavior," Professor Zelix protested. "Fear responses are typically triggered by demonstrated superiority in combat capabilities, territorial advantage, or chemical intimidation factors." "It's not about superiority," Marcus replied. "It's about recognition. Every predator has instincts that tell them when they're facing something that won't fight them, something that will hunt them instead." The room fell silent as the implications of this statement settled in. "You're saying that Earth predators recognize humans as—" Commander Thesic began, then stopped, his scales cycling rapidly through confused color patterns. "As the species that hunts predators," Marcus finished quietly. "Not for food, not for territory, but because we can. Because when something threatens us or our pack, we don't fight it or run from it. We follow it home, learn its weaknesses, and eliminate the threat permanently." General Thurvok's tusks gleamed as he considered this. "The persistence predator concept. I have read military histories of this strategy. But those describe hunting prey animals across vast distances, not psychological warfare against apex predators." "Same strategy, different application," Marcus explained. When early humans encountered a lion pride that threatened their tribe, they didn't fight the lions directly. They tracked the pride for weeks, learned their patterns, their territories, their vulnerabilities. Then they systematically eliminated the threat using tools, traps, and coordination that the lions couldn't predict or counter. Eventually, he continued, word spread through the ecosystem. Not through language, but through instinct. The smell of humans became associated with the complete destruction of anything that threatened them. Lions, tigers, bears, creatures that could easily kill individual humans, learned to avoid human territory entirely. Ambassador Lyrics processed this information through her enhanced intellect, running rapid calculations. You're describing an evolutionary arms race where humans developed the ultimate deterrent, the credible threat of total retaliation. Exactly, Marcus agreed. We became the species that other species don't want to provoke, not because we're stronger, but because we're more dangerous in ways they can't understand or predict. Admiral Kethek leaned back in his command chair, his ancient mind working through the strategic implications. And this instinct, it transfers to alien ecosystems? Apparently, Marcus replied. I think what happened on Vex Prime was that the predators there recognized something in my behavior. My scent, my movement patterns that triggered the same avoidance response that Earth predators learned over millions of years. I wasn't trying to intimidate them. I was just being human. Professor Zelix's mandibles clicked rapidly with excitement. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies psychology. If humans carry inherent deterrent factors that work across multiple evolutionary lines, the implications for exploration, colonization, and defense are extraordinary. It also explains something else, General Thurvok added thoughtfully. Human military units consistently outperform projections in combat scenarios involving unknown alien threats. We attributed this to adaptability and tactical flexibility, but perhaps there's a deeper factor at work. Permission to speak freely, sir? Marcus asked. Admiral Kethek nodded. Granted. I think you're all missing the most important point, Marcus said. This isn't about humans being superior to other species. It's about humans being different in a way that's useful for galactic civilization. Every species here brings unique strengths to the Alliance. Cronin courage, Altarian intellect, Vex efficiency, Saurian leadership. Humans bring something else, the ability to walk into the unknown and make it familiar. He gestured toward the holographic display that still showed scenes from Vex Prime. The galaxy is full of unexplored worlds, unknown threats, and hostile environments. Most species approach these challenges by building better weapons, stronger armor, or smarter technology. Humans approach them by learning to belong there. You're suggesting that human exploration capabilities represent a unique strategic resource? Commander Thesic observed, his scales settling into contemplative green. I'm suggesting that every species in the Galactic Alliance evolved to dominate their home environment in specific ways, Marcus replied. Humans evolved to dominate any environment by becoming part of it, not through conquest, but through adaptation and persistence. The council chamber fell quiet as the assembled representatives considered this perspective. For species that had spent millennia defining themselves through their superior capabilities, the concept of strength through adaptability was profoundly alien. Finally, Admiral Kethek spoke. Cadet Chen, your trial results have already qualified you for accelerated advancement through the Academy program. However, given these revelations about human capabilities, we are prepared to offer you something unprecedented. Marcus waited respectfully for the Admiral to continue. Direct commission to Special Operations Command with immediate assignment to First Contact Protocols, Admiral Kethek announced. The Galactic Alliance has recently detected signals from the Andromeda Spiral, evidence of previously unknown civilizations. Someone will need to make initial contact. to walk into completely alien territory and establish peaceful relations with species we know nothing about. Normally, such missions require full battle fleets and extensive technological support, the Admiral continued. But perhaps what we really need is someone who can walk alone into the unknown and convince the apex predators to step aside. Marcus considered the offer carefully. It meant leaving behind the normal academy progression, abandoning the safety of established protocols, and venturing into truly unexplored space where no human had ever gone before. It meant walking alone again, but on a galactic scale. "I accept, sir," Marcus replied without hesitation. As the council session concluded and representatives began filing out of the chamber, Ambassador Lyrics approached Marcus one final time. "I owe you an apology," she said, her silver eyes reflecting genuine emotion. "My calculations about human capabilities were not just wrong, they were irrelevant. I was measuring you against the wrong parameters." "No apology necessary," Marcus replied. "You were working with the best data available. That's good science." "Perhaps," Lyrics agreed, "but I failed to account for the most important variable, the incalculable nature of a species that refuses to accept limitations." As Marcus left the Academy Council chamber for the final time, heading toward a new assignment that would take him to unexplored galaxies, he reflected on the strange journey that had brought him this far. He had joined the Academy as just another human trying to prove his worth among superior alien species. He was leaving as something much more significant, the representative of a type of evolutionary development that the galaxy had never seen before. The persistence predator, evolved not to be the strongest or fastest or smartest, but to be the one who never stops coming. The species that learns to belong anywhere, adapt to anything, and find common ground with even the most alien intelligences. Behind him, the Academy continued its mission of training the galaxy's finest warriors, scholars, and explorers. Ahead of him lay the vast unknown of intergalactic space, filled with civilizations and challenges that no one could predict. Marcus walked alone toward that unknown future, just as he had always walked alone. And somewhere in the quantum foam between galaxies, apex predators he had never seen were already beginning to step aside.